Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to my show, High Road to Humanity. In every episode, I tell you powerful true stories filled with great wisdom that you can use in your own life as you strive for a higher road to travel. My featured guests will have their own unique stories to tell that enlighten your mind and your soul. So kick back, relax, and learn the secret to success when you take the high road.
First touch, strong connection, it lays deep in your soul.
Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And I have a lovely lady here today. Julia Griffin is here, and let me give you some information about her. She's a very interesting lady, and I'm so excited she's on the program today. So Julia is known internationally for her ability to enlighten others, to find their true self and become conscious co-creators through practical application of universal law. And that's pretty much what we're learning here. Her teachings embody advanced concepts for those who want to deepen their understanding of co-creation and personal reality. Now, she has a deep understanding of energetics based on extensive studies. She is an alchemist, an astrologer, an herbalist, a Reiki Master 3. Julia has the ability to communicate with plants and animals, and she lived with wolves for 9 years while developing her intuitive abilities. And we'll talk to her about that. But welcome to High Road to Humanity, Julia.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm glad you're joining us today. I'm excited to hear your story. You guys, because it is High Road to Humanity, I wanted to bring this up. I always like to give good news, but there is not such good news here. The headline reads, "What we know about the fire in Philadelphia's Fairmont section that killed 8 children and 4 adults." Now, investigators are looking into the possibilities the blaze might have been sparked by a Christmas tree fire, sources say. So this is from Philadelphia. They say we are learning more about the devastating fire in the Fairmont section of Philadelphia that erupted Wednesday morning. It left 12 people, including 8 children, dead. However, there are still many unanswered questions. The house was split into 2 apartments. It says Unit A and Unit B, and sources say most, if not all, of the fatalities occurred in Unit B. This is such a sad situation, and it goes on and talks. So blessings to those people's family, because that's a real tragedy to happen after the holidays. So I just wanted to bring that to people's attention. Anything you want to say, Julia?
Well, I think when we start with that, what we want to do is to send light to that area and to all those people, and to ask that the pain be lifted and comfort come to those people.
That is wonderful. Yeah.
And I kind of like a pink peachy light for comfort, because sometimes that's all you can do.
Right. Send good energy, and you can focus it with light. I want to say you do private sessions. You have you've been doing counseling for many years, but how did you get into this type of work? And my goodness, how did you end up spending time with the wolves? I want to hear your story and all about it.
Okay, well, I really started studying and meditating when I was 18, and I was always psychic. I knew about things that were going to happen. I had very strong feelings, definitely an empath, but it wasn't always accurate. And I think we all have this sometimes. When you're emotional, you tend to misread things. Where you have blocks within yourself, you tend to misread things. And kept thinking, as much as I've studied, there's got to be some way that you start to get to an inner truth. And I thought, well, look at all these people who've awakened throughout time. That's what I want. I want to awaken on a deeper level. So that became my mantra for about a year. And I had a moment where I really, truly had the most beautiful awakening. It was one of those fall days where everything is copper and silver and golden and red. And all of a sudden, my son was small then, I was playing with him. I could see the light and everything, like the light behind the leaves, the earth, the birds, my son. And it was just ecstatic. So I was like, okay, I had a flash of awakening, and I've read enough and I've studied enough to know I'll get a teacher. That's what it always says, right? So I'm like thinking, any day now my teacher will show up or I'll bump into them. So I sort of had a dream series about a white wolf. Well, 2 weeks later on the full moon, my ex-husband said, a friend of mine has 2 wolves. would you like to have them? I'm like, no, I'm afraid of wolves, because of all the stories and fairy tales. And he said, well, how about just going to see them? So I said, okay. So I'm standing there watching, and they start rubbing against my legs through the wire fence. There were two of them.
Oh my gosh.
And, it was like they were clearly talking to me and looking at me, and it's a really deep connection. And I said, I have got to go in there. And they just looked at me like, you sure? Because they weren't particularly tame. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. And I went in, and it was this incredible exchange of energy. It's like immediately I probably had twice as much energy, if not more. Every single thing that moved, like the pine trees, the way they aligned with the sun, the shadows on the earth, when a bird flew over, it was so intense.
Mhm.
Well, so I laughed. I thought, wow, that was cool. That was a lot of energy. Well, then the wolf starts talking to me. He shows me how if he went through the woods, how he could get to my house. And I'm thinking, well, this isn't for real, is it? So anyway, to make a long story short, the next thing he did was tell me where a rare herb was on the mountain, because I lived right in the valley of a mountain. It was there. I'm like, wow. So anyway, I found out like 2 more weeks later that this lady, Liz, was coming to pick up the wolves. And at that time, a lot of people bred hybrid wolves. And when I met her, I told her, I said, he keeps talking to me. I can hear what he's saying. Well, she didn't say I was crazy. She said that I could follow her home with the kids and come meet her wolves. So
Okay.
Liesel and Sheba were her house wolves. And they were very polite. Like they would sit, they would do this, they would do that. So anyway, I'm thinking, well, how can I tell her, that I really do hear them? So I'm
Right.
going home, I'm cooking, and all of a sudden I get a picture of oatmeal in Liesel's face. And I called her and I said, Liesel wants oatmeal. And she said, Julia, do you really think that wolves eat oatmeal? And I said, well, no, but I really had this strong picture. So later on, I found out that that was her favorite food. And that made Liz believe me. So she kept inviting me over, and they told me these myths of how they came here to our world with us, like on a star journey. And then they started making my wishes come true. And I was like, well, how is this happening? And they're like, it only really works with wishes that come from your heart or your inner self. And over a period of time, they taught me that these huge waves of energy when you're aligned with your inner self. And anything else you create, I mean, it's just static. It's not going to be anything you want. It takes you out of who you think you are or whatever, but it takes you away. And I think in a society that we live in, where there's a tendency to want so much, and certainly I'm prey to that sometimes, like everyone else.
We're only human.
The question is, does it align with your inner self?
Mhm, mhm. What a wonderful story. And I want to hear more about their story. Now, did the two white wolves come to live with you?
The white wolves were in a dream. The wild wolves, one of them, Maya, she lived with me for many years.
Okay.
And she came to be with me. And the most fascinating thing about it, and this is one thing that I really learned about energy, is that, like I think most people who become intuitives or help other people had some really bad things happen to them that they overcame.
Right.
And in the act of overcoming something like that, either you want to become powerful and control people or you want to help people. It's one or the other. I want to
Mhm.
help people.
Right.
But I
Wow.
would have these periods of time every single day when I'd move into depression, and I would think, it wasn't long, maybe just an hour and a half, but I would think, how am I going to change my life? When am I not going to feel this way? It's just never going to end. So here's Maya. She comes and lies on my feet, and I start remembering some of the best times of my life. Um, like being at the beach with my parents and it was just the perfect day, or the first time I was kissed, or what it's like when you go to sleep in the spring on the earth. And those were such vibrant memories coming up that I learned that positive memories, positive vibrations, positive thoughts can actually displace a lot of the negative energy in our lives and lift us up to a higher level, particularly if we keep working on discerning who's the inner self and who's the outer self.
Well, and I always talk, when those negative thoughts come in, it's programming. And so we have to reprogram ourselves. And that's what I've been working on. And I think a lot of us who are aware of this energetic situation do this because, and I've taught the audience, whatever you say, whatever you think, and whatever you feel goes out into the universe and the universe complies. And that's how it works. So it's kind of crazy. And I'm really glad you're here to talk about this today. And it's interesting how the wolves brought you to this, to this point, and how you saw the energy right before you met them. Nothing is by accident, right?
Well, you have to pay attention to a dream like that when you've never met a wolf in your life and it happens 2 weeks later on the full moon.
And you're like, what?
And these animals are giving you highly accurate information. Like, your grandmother's going to send you $50 in the mail. You'll get it on Friday. I'm like, what? And then
And you
there
got
would
it.
be. Yeah. It was so accurate that there was no
Right.
denying it.
Well, we're going to commercial break right now. You guys, I'm here today with Julia Griffin. When we come back, we're going to talk more about energy, about enlightenment. And this is Nancy Earl. This is High Road to Humanity. We'll be right back. Hi, this is Nancy Earl, and this is High Road to Humanity. And I'm here today with Julia Griffin. We're talking about the wolves. We're talking about energy. We're talking about going inside. And, Julia, I wanted to ask you, as you're talking about this, we have to go within. The answers are within. They're not outside of us. They're not with things. They're inside of us. And my big thing is, to connect to that higher energy, that higher frequency, to where it clears me on a daily basis. I teach the audience to do that because I believe it's clearing you and it's bringing you information. Now, I have clear cognizance, and it looks like you do too, but I've always had the issue, and you're just talking about this, so I want to get your take on it. I can read for you. I can tell you everything that you're supposed to know, comes right through, comes from a higher source, and this is your message. But when you read for yourself, it's much more, see, she laughs.
Yeah.
It's so difficult for me personally. I'm learning how to do it, but it's very hard because you get in your own way all the time because you want the answer to be what you want it to be. Talk about this. Have you been able to overcome this?
I have a lot of different methods of working through it. The first one that I use is light blue light, because that puts you in a place of ease, a place of not struggling. And so
Okay.
it starts to separate you. What I know about it is that when we really don't know the answer and we're stuck, that's karmic. It's something we've gotten from other lifetimes. It's something we picked up from our childhood. It's a place we haven't developed ourselves. And so the first thing that happens is that you feel frustrated. So this is what I decided to do, is to start sending white light to the block and seeing it get smaller.
Now, how
And
do you
I
know where the
noticed-
block is, though? I don't mean to interrupt
Well,
you.
you feel it. Don't you feel a block? See where you want to go forward and you don't know how, or where you're stuck in life. Feel it.
Okay.
It's a heavy feeling.
Okay.
And you actually feel it in your body as well. But I visualize it, like in astrology, a square is tension. So I see it as a dark colored square in front of me, and I send light to it and I say, accept it. And as I send light to it and send energy to it, I see it getting smaller. And I say, this is a part of me that needs to heal and become integrated. How cool it is that I've identified a part of me that needs to do this. And I find that I keep getting information until I can integrate more of that part of myself.
That's interesting. Now, I get messages from the angelic realm quite a bit, but I'm good with animals, but I don't hear them. I just feel them. When did you start hearing? And how did you, was it with the wolves, or did
It
you
was
hear?
with the wolves. It was so clear. I mean, they could talk for paragraphs the same way that you and I are talking.
What
And
they
then
teach
after
you?
what did they teach me? To be more courageous, that I had parts of myself that were weak that I had to work on. I had to come up with a new identity. I had to develop my power, because you have to be powerful to be in a pen of, say, 10 wolves. You can't make a mistake. You can't look weak physically. So you lower your voice, you lower your weight, and you talk in an authoritative voice. Well, everybody actually responds to that.
Right.
So, that was a huge thing to learn. The other thing that I learned was that when I had a problem, I would sit in the middle of them and they would make a circle and send me energy. And the more I felt my inner self, the more power I had to move through it. But they would explain why energy worked. Like if a person came in, they would tell me how they were off energetically. And, why I was feeling the way that I felt. For a long time, I thought that I was just so introverted that people didn't appeal to me. But they explained to me a lot of people lean on your energy. And those were mainly the people that I didn't like or people who weren't telling the truth. But those were
Right.
like two super strong reactions that I was
Right.
having.
Right.
Well, then I started hearing all dogs, cats, birds, whatever. If I want to talk to them, I hear them. Same thing with plants. And then the most difficult of all was hearing the thoughts of people. Now I listen with my heart, but first turned on, it just sounded like the most unhappy roar of energy I've ever heard in my life. And it probably took like 2 or 3 years to turn it down so that I
Mm.
don't hear what people are thinking. I go into their heart and see what's happening.
Thank you. We just did it. I did a show yesterday on empaths, and the girl was an empath, and I'm an empath. And we were talking about this because I pick up I can pick up who a person has been around or their energy and stuff. So how did you? And there's a lot of times where I don't want to pick that up. So yeah. So how did you learn to not pick it up? I guess is my
I
question.
ask my guides and angels to do a barrier. Same thing
Okay.
about seeing auras, that unless I ask to hear it or I ask to see it, that I won't. And
Okay.
sometimes I do if someone's really projecting heavily. Or let's
Mhm.
face it, if we're living with someone and they have the same thought 100 times, you're going to hear it. But
Yeah.
I can filter out some of it. And I also do like um, I do a very powerful blue light around myself. And
Mhm.
people aren't as interested in projecting to someone who feels powerful. They tend to go in instead of out when they feel that energy.
I like the blue light. I had been putting myself into a phone booth for a while.
Yeah,
I
use
had
a
to.
pyramid. I
Yeah, I
think
had. Yeah.
it
And it works, but I like
works.
yeah, it works. I like your blue light. That's kind of cool. Yeah, because it's hard because we are so receptive and we are so compassionate and you want to be compassionate, but on the flip side, you have to protect yourself. So it's a balance and it's a balancing act.
Because you can't help them if you absorb too much.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's a big thing that we're all going through right now is you have to help other people when you're on the path. How much do you help them? How much of their energy do you absorb? How do you get rid of it? And how
Yeah.
do you stay on your path and stay centered in the midst of all of this? And I think
Mhm.
sort of what I've come to is to focus on the idea of more awakening and the larger consciousness moving into awakening. What would that feel like? And for the first time ever, when I ask that, it feels good to me. So I figure there are a lot of people who are ready to do it.
I love it. That's really awesome. And I guess I'm going to go back to the same thing that I said before that I really feel like just connecting and bringing the light down through your body. And I use different colors, it depending upon what I ask, what color do I need today? And just bringing the white light. I think that to me and prayer and connecting with the divine,
Mhm.
if I'm connected, I'm okay. Now I can
Yeah.
pick up, and I've learned how to protect and I've taught the audience how to protect. But I think that connection is the best thing that I could tell people. What do you think?
I totally agree with you. If you
Yeah.
just even sit there for 5 or 10 minutes and you get quiet with yourself and open your heart and the universe comes in, it's like
Mhm.
in that instant, that's the best protection you could ever have. Your
Mhm.
vibration goes up, your thoughts change, your sensations change, and your emotions change. And the second they do, it's like you've raised an antenna. You're getting the higher broadcast.
Hey, what do you know about hair? I read something about long hair. I want to know what you think about this because there's something about our long hair and the connection.
I
What do
think
you
so too.
know? You think so too?
Yeah. Yeah, I would never want it any shorter than this.
Right. And
Let's go with that.
yeah, well, me either. And I've had people say, "Oh, you're too old. You should cut your hair." Well, mostly my mom or whatever before
Right.
she died. But but God bless her.
What
But
she knows.
yeah. But I read that somewhere that this is part of our antenna, and that just blew my mind. I
I
thought
think
that
it's
was
part of our power. I mean, it's like I've seen wolves that people shaved for the summer and they were just horrified until their fur came back. I mean, they want their fur, they want their hair. I definitely think that it protects and it collects energy. And for people who have long hair, you know how comforting it is to sleep with it at night.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
true. Okay, all right.
I'm with you on that.
That's really crazy. Okay. Okay. So as you are doing your work, I would imagine you do readings for people and
Mhm.
that type of thing. So do you feel that, do you see a change? Do you see the vibration raising? Do you see people changing? What do you see
I
out
think
there?
that's an individual choice. I notice that people seem to go down with certain thoughts and certain news, and then they go back up again. But, I think what I'm coming to is sometimes all of us are affected by the collective lower consciousness,
Ah, okay.
and then you have to get yourself back up from that. I do think people are going into a higher frequency more easily. What
Mhm.
I don't think yet is that they've learned how to hold it or maintain it.
Yeah, and that's exactly. Now, I feel like over the next couple years, that's what we're going to be working on to get to that point,
I agree.
maybe 2023, 2024, something like that.
And or all of us magic people will get together and speed it up.
Yeah, wouldn't that be
Yeah,
cool?
I know.
Yeah.
Let's accelerate it because you already know how to accelerate things for other people. I mean, it shouldn't be that hard.
Well, we are creators. And I think,
Mhm.
I'm like teaching people maybe on the show, that whatever we say and whatever we think matters, and how you treat other people matters. It's because we're all energy and we're all connected and we're all the same. And, I think just getting the concept down, you know what
It's
I mean?
huge. Well, that was one of the first things that the wolves told me. You were a creator and you came here to create. And they said in the beginning, when we came here, it was eternal spring. And we could look at a tree and we could think, I want a flower. And the tree would make that flower. We could say, I want a piece of fruit. And the limb would bend down and the fruit would be in our hands. And that's who we came here as. And as this cycle of time turns, we're supposed to move back into that role and remember. And they also say that some of the keys or some of the links for that were turned off, but now they're being turned back on. So we really are, it will really become easier and easier to create or manifest.
When we come back from commercial break, I want to find out why they were turned off. This is Nancy. You're out. This is High Road to Humanity, and we'll be right back. Hi, this is Nancy. You're out. This is High Road to Humanity. I'm here today with Julia Griffin, and we're talking about the wolves. Why did they turn off the keys? I mean, what happened? What do they say happened to us? I'm
Well, there are two
curious.
different, there's one thing that they showed me, which was that for whatever reason, the earth became more dense. Like, I don't even think we slept in the beginning, but it
Okay.
became heavier and heavier, and duality became more and more pronounced. So we became stuck in duality. You know how, I mean, probably even in your life, there was a really straight line about what was good and what was bad.
Correct.
And so it's more mixed up now. And part of our thing is not to get sucked in by polarity or duality. But they
Mhm.
said it really is much more important for us to concentrate on who we would be if we were creators, and to think about things that we can do.
Right.
What if, for example, financial abundance was no longer an issue? What would you do? Well, I'd still do the same thing.
Me too.
But what if I had more time to be creative? Yeah, I would take that. Or, more time to be with my friends and more
Mhm.
time to do things that were fun. Sure, I'd
Yeah.
love that. They also say, and I mean, we've all read this in other places, that would be easy for us to live for 300 years. So unaging is another thing that they offer us.
Right. And now let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, that's because there's so many chemicals in our food that has changed us. I believe our DNA has changed. I mean, what do you find is the difference for us not living as longer? And mindset too. I want to say it's the
Yeah, I was going to
mindset.
say, I think it's our mind, because
Yeah.
think about when you look young and all of a sudden your friends look older. They
Yeah.
project you as looking older. They project you as being their age. And it's also partially based on how your parents aged. So if
Okay.
you start rewriting that and holding pictures of yourself looking younger, they tell us that will work. I know that if a lot of us did it, it would work a lot better.
I think I'll just tell you what I think on this one.
Yeah,
I
sure.
think by the more spiritual you become and the more you bring in the light, okay, and the higher you raise your vibration, that makes you younger. I really think,
Definitely. Well, you're not going to be able to imagine yourself differently otherwise.
yeah.
I mean, you
Is
wouldn't even begin to believe it or to think that you could or bother to visualize it, I don't
yeah.
think.
Well, no, I still think I'm young. I
I feel
refuse.
that way too.
Do
Yeah.
you feel that? Isn't that funny? Yeah, I still feel like I'm young. Well, of course, I guess that's what we all do. And that's part of it. And everyone always says, well, I'm young at heart, because what I think is, since we're on this age thing really quick, and we were just talking about it, you're right. We get it in our mind, like, oh, our parents look old, so we think we're supposed to look like that. But if we don't think that way, then we won't become that way, because we create it, because we create this.
Exactly. But no one
Yeah.
gets to the point of creating unless they brought in an awful lot of spiritual energy.
Yeah.
Or if they are creating, what are they going to create? Things they don't want.
Right. Now, what do you think about the people who are just hateful and negative? Because you run across these people, I do, and I shine my light, and they're like, oh, why are you so happy? But yeah, there's a lot of us. And so do you feel like all those people will come around?
I don't think that that's up to me. I think what's up to me is to hold the image of the best possible reality, not to react to them because they're just reflecting the lower vibrations of the
Okay.
earth.
Okay.
And seeing those people who are conscious become conscious.
Okay.
Now, I do, when I drive around, fix things. Like if I see someone with a sign who wants money, I put them in new clothes and give them a job in my mind. Things like that all the
Love
time.
it. Love it.
And I
love
fix it as I go around. Or
Okay.
this person can't help it. Tomorrow they're in a good mood. Haha.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So we can use our creative abilities to help others without them knowing it. And maybe it'll change their life as well.
Well, I think that's one of the very biggest things about the planet, from what I understand from the wolves. It's like the earth herself, the inner earth, is getting all this energy and light. But she needs us to help visualize the old growth trees, the forest being protected, less pollution. I think better distribution of wealth, because let's say the 50 people who have it the most are destroying the earth. I mean, we could have cars that last for 50 years. We could have free power. We
Oh,
could
absolutely.
have a life that's in alignment with nature, but she needs us to hold the vision.
So what each of us can do is to take a minute in the morning or in the evening. I always say in the morning because it starts your day. And now I connect to Mother Earth, but what you're saying, and I bring up the light from the earth. I bring down the light and I bring up the light.
Right.
Yes. And so what I can say is, maybe a little prayer for the trees or for the forest or for the
And
birds or something like
visualize it,
that.
because the wolves always said visualizing is one of the most powerful things we can do. We don't realize that we navigate through life this way.
Okay.
So let's all imagine, where are your car keys? Oh, you left them on the seat in your car. You can't help it. You just did a visual of the inside of your car and how your keys feel. So we literally navigate that way. Let's say go get a glass of water. You just put yourself in your kitchen with a glass in your hand. We're unconscious of it. Think of how many visuals you have to tie your shoe. But once you learn it, it's programmed. So
Right.
think if we start doing a lot of visuals that we program ourselves, what a difference that would make.
I think, yeah. So we're back to the reprogramming and reprogramming positive visuals. I love that. I love that. That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm big.
What's
Go ahead.
one of your favorite visuals?
Well, what is one of my favorite visuals? One of my favorite visuals is me talking and teaching about God to people. I see myself in front of a large audience talking about God.
Yeah,
and
a
how to
much larger
connect.
audience.
Yeah, a larger audience, and I'm standing there and
And then the
I'm
angels above that.
yeah.
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 I got it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
see how good you feel? Notice everyone how different she looks and how she feels when she talks about that.
Well, because I
That's
can't
that.
wait.
It comes
Yeah.
from yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's what I came here for, is to teach people about God.
Because I say in classes, this is what happens. I've done it too. You start visualizing, it becomes really clear. You sit there and everything in your life starts to work and move into the flow, right? So it's working and you just feel so good. And then you think, gosh, it'd be an awful lot of work to do that. I'm happy how I am. And then you go back down. So you have to keep doing it, even when you're getting the synchronicities and things are falling into place. That's when you make it even bigger.
Right. Now, I will give a tip for this. The best time that I'm visualizing is when I'm on the elliptical or when I'm on the bike and and my music is going, and I know a lot of people do it when they run, that type of thing. When do you do it?
I like to meditate most when it's becoming day and when it's becoming night, because those are the two windows between the worlds. But
Okay.
I also love to do it when I walk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because everything's in a real balanced rhythm. Your
Right.
body is going along with you while you're doing it. And I
Yeah.
think if you stay in nature, your heart has to open.
And that's a big thing too. Let's talk about that for a minute because I've been really big on this last year on earthing, on walking outside and taking my shoes off and standing there for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it really makes a whole lot of sense to me that we shouldn't be wearing shoes, that we should really be out barefoot during the day because that's how we get our healing power. Our healing energy comes from Mother Earth. And, that all got messed up.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, think of just the minerals you absorb from the earth walking barefooted. And everything can feel you more when you're barefooted.
Yeah. Did the wolf say anything about that? How we lost a lot of that healing from the energy
They
of the
just
earth?
felt like we were all asleep, that there were just a few people who were awake and that we had to do something. That's why they were talking to me about it. I have to have someone.
So the animals know what's going on. They know what's happening right now. Do they, and because they have the energy, they have the vibration, they have the intelligence. And so what do they feel or what do they see happening for humanity?
Well, they think if we can reclaim many of those abilities that you and I have been talking about, that we'll
Right.
get very close to that level of instant manifestation,
Okay.
that animals and people and plants can all become friends again.
Yes.
Like it's fine to have a car, but why do you drive around all day running errands? Sort of silly, right? So that kind of thing. I can tell you one time I had a dream that it was the future and everybody had a nice house, but it was nothing extravagant. When I saw my friends, everybody was showing the other person what they had made. Like one person had made a jacket, another person made a bracelet or a hat. And it was like they were so happy that they were making things. And then we went for a walk and we had food that, everyone had made from what grew in their yard. And I thought, hey, I could live like this.
That's how we should live.
Mhm.
And you think I hope it'll go back to that. In
I think
fact,
that's just my version. I think we probably
yeah,
have a million people who can awaken and do
yeah,
this visualization process, and
right,
everybody else has wonderful ideas. Your ideas may all be better than mine. I don't know, but I know we need your point of view. We
right.
need your picture in there with the millions.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm really glad you came on today and that we're talking about all this stuff because people need hope. I think a lot of people with so much negativity going on with the vaccines and the viruses and all this kind of stuff. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about that when we come back from commercial break. You guys, I'm here today with Julia Griffin. Hey, Julia, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they find you?
They can send an email, one true self, true self at gmail.com, or go to my website, sign up for my newsletter, onetrueself.com, onetrueself.com.
Love it. All right. This is Nancy. You're out. This is High Road to Humanity, and we'll be right back. I'm so glad to meet you. Yay. Hi, this is Nancy. You're out, and this is High Road to Humanity. We're doing the last segment here today with Julia Griffin. I'm so glad you came on to visit us today, Julia. You're such a wealth of information, and I love hearing about the wolves. I love the animals, and I know the people do too. You and I were talking on the break. Life has not been easy for us. Um, us, I don't know, spiritual
Different
people.
people, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, and I was telling you, I feel like we had to go through these things so that we would know how it felt, so that we could be compassionate towards others. Talk about that if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. The story I'm going to tell is that after I'd been around the wolves for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years, it became apparent to me that I would have to leave my husband. And at that time, I had just taken on a full-time job. My children were pretty young, and I didn't have any money. So I actually ended up, had to stay with a friend. I had no place to live. I had $300, an old car, a wolf, and two kids. And that was like a really low point. It pretty much felt like a bulldozer had been through my life, and I did have to create a new identity. I had the wolves to help me, and they did, but it was extremely difficult. And so I think we go through these difficult things to learn how to do it, because they were like saying, see a house for rent in your children's school district. I'm like, I've been looking for 2 months.
Yeah.
And then one of the people who came in to work for some reason, she said, is something bothering you? And I told her about the house, and she said, oh, I know where you can rent a 2-story house for $400 or $500 a month. And she did that for me.
So
But I had been visualizing it like hours and hours every day. So it
So
wasn't just,
the wolves, the animals can help us if we ask. Is that what you're
yeah.
saying?
Well, in the universe too, what they were telling me to do was to visualize what I wanted, the
Okay.
same way that I've told you. And
Mhm.
because I felt fairly desperate, because between myself and my friend, we had now had 4 children, which is a
Mhm.
lot. And I needed a place to come back to myself. And so they kept saying, see exactly what you want, see land around it, see a stream. I'm like, they don't know how much anything costs around here. They're nuts.
Yeah.
But then there it was.
Yeah.
And that's what visualization and believing in yourself can do. And I
Mhm.
think we're moving through sort of a 2-phase period of time right now. The first one is visualize for yourself to get you out of a difficult situation.
Right.
Then start visualizing for people around you and the planet. As soon as you
Yeah.
get it to work for you, then make it bigger. Because the odd thing is when you can do it for other people and it's the right thing to do, and they change and we're waiting, they have to change. You
Right.
get this huge influx of energy, and your energy field gets bigger, and you can help more people and do more things.
Right. And you know, I've been doing the Oppo, I don't know if you've heard of this, the Oponopono thing where you
Yeah, I love
say,
it.
yeah, I've been doing that. And that's how, you know, because people don't know you're doing it, but you're doing it and it works. It really
It
works. And this
really
is,
works.
yeah, if you guys don't know it, it's where you say, I love you. Please forgive me. I forgive myself. I'm sorry. Thank you. And it's the vibration of the words. It's the power of the intention to that person that changes the vibration. And it helps them, believe it or not.
Well, the other part is, say I'm stuck in traffic. I go through the whole thing. I'm sorry, I must have created this because I know I have. Please forgive me because it's incorrect visualization or feeling, right? And I'll think, okay. And then you say, you know, I love you, thank you. And but what I think is I can change myself. I can be a person who's calm in that traffic and doesn't care. When I'm calm, everything changes. So that's where I put myself, and it changed. And it works with everything. It's the feelings that you're having, it's what you're projecting. And as soon as you forgive yourself for having the wrong projection, it starts to change. So I think part of it is taking responsibility for our emotions.
That's absolutely what it is. And, you know, bringing in the light makes you more balanced. So when these things do happen, you don't react. I've tried to tell people that you see it happening. I'm to this point, I'm watching it, but it's not affecting me like it used to. I used
Right.
everything, you know, especially when you're an empath, things really affect you or anybody. It doesn't matter whether you're an empath or not. Life affects everybody. But when you start to center and stay balanced, and that's the only way. It's not,
It's the only way.
yeah,
When
you
you're an
can't buy
empath,
stuff.
there's
It's,
nothing else you can do.
yeah, it's not money. It's not stuff. It's just balancing. And that's
Mhm.
it. That's the key.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think? We won't have money. We'll just exchange stuff. I think maybe that's what we'll do.
I think we'll mostly exchange. I think there'll be some money, but I just decided why not set it up? You know, if we're taking today's currency, so everybody gets 10 grand at the beginning of the month, that's plenty. It'd be fun. Or 5. You know what I'm saying? More than
Yeah.
what you would think you would need.
Mhm. Yeah, but I think people will get to a point where they realize that stuff doesn't make them happy and
They
and
will.
that will fall to the wayside. Won't that be interesting to
Because
see
if we
that?
can create it so that nothing falls apart. And my great grandmother had a whole kitchen set she bought in 1909 that
Okay.
lasted until she was almost 100. So I know it can be done. So if we start seeing that everything lasts, I mean, how much do we need to buy? Not much.
We don't. It's become an obsession. It's become people looking for fulfillment outside of themselves. That's really what it
Mhm.
is. And now people are starting to go, wait a minute, you know, and you when you start to become aware, you start to see it.
Mhm. Yeah, you see it everywhere.
It's blatant. And then you're like, oh, and you can't
Yeah.
really say anything. I just want to say this too. And you can talk about this if you want. We got about 5 or 6 minutes left.
Uh-huh.
You can't change anybody. You can't wake them up. You can just be an example. Talk a little bit about that because it's hard with families right now. Because I do readings and they'll say, well, my brother and sister think I'm crazy. And, you know, do you hear a lot of that too?
Yeah. Okay. So don't tell people about what you've just manifested or created or how psychic you are, but do spend time telling yourself, like, oh, Julia, that was great. You did all your meditations. Everything you visualized happened today. You were so cool. I can talk to myself like that. And that kind of self-talk really helps. People are going to drive you crazy. Some of the time it's part of life. You can meditate. You can decide you're not going to react, that you'll wait until you're not upset to figure out a new way of dealing with it. And I like to send pink light, which is like universal unconditional love, to the person that they really are underneath all of that.
Yeah. Well,
I
and
want,
you go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
I was going to say, if you're around somebody that is toxic, just like you had to go through and I had to go through too, actually,
Yeah,
when you're around toxic people, sometimes you have to walk away and start over, and that's
you
okay.
definitely do. And it's okay.
Mhm.
And that's the one thing I think I said a couple classes ago, is that as you evolve spiritually, your friends are going to seem different. Some will be closer, some will be more distant. And some places, like say your favorite place to have dinner, maybe you don't like it anymore. You don't
Yeah.
like your clothes. Those things happen.
Hmm. So as
It's
you
not
change,
bad. It's just change.
yeah. Well, yeah. And it's changed for the better too, I
Yeah,
think.
it
So,
is.
yeah, I think that's really awesome. Well, so with everything going on, what do you feel about, have you gotten any messages from the wolves about the pandemic?
They're like, stay healthy, drink a lot of water, stay away from people, keep thinking good thoughts. Because I think with higher vibrations, you tend not to get sick. And I think
Mhm.
the other message with that is, we don't need to be in crowds. We don't need to be out shopping. We don't need all these things that became our way of life. There's a different way of doing it. I don't know what that way is of doing it yet, but I know I find it very nice to go walk around the lake or something and see people and say hello and walk by. There are those kind of interactions that are meaningful as well.
Yeah. No,
And
I
so they're
get
kind
you.
of like, it's more time to come inside.
Hmm. And yeah, I just traveled over the holiday, and just being in the airport around all those people, it was crazy. It was overwhelming. And it almost takes away. I did meet a couple nice people. I will tell you that the positive part about my whole trip is I did meet a couple nice people along the way. And a couple of us got stuck, in an airport, and we befriended each other and we kind of hung out. And so those are the cool things that happen out of some of these crazy things, that you experience in life. And it's funny because, when these things happen, years ago, I'll just be honest and say maybe 20 years ago, I would have been so upset. But this time it was like, oh, well, what am I supposed to learn from this? And who am I
Yeah.
supposed to meet? And it ended up meeting nice people, picked up a couple really cool spiritual books, and realized that there was a higher purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's for us to be quiet and go inside.
Mhm. What would you like to leave us with today, Julia, before we get out of here?
I am going to go to what the wolf said to me. You're a creator and you came here to create. So when something's not working, say some small part of me, at least 10%, is part of this problem, I'm going to feel things differently. I'm going to visualize differently. And I'm going to send love and light to the part of myself that's involved with this. And that's okay. And then when you start to get that for yourself, you'll be surprised at how much changes in your life. If you want to know more, lots of articles, resources, onetrueself.com, onetrueself.com.
Fantastic. Thanks for coming on today. It was such a
Great
pleasure to meet
pleasure.
you. Thanks.
Namaste.
Hey, namaste. You guys, if you want a psychic reading, go to my website, nancyyearout.com, and just click on the book button, and you can book your date and time. Everybody have a terrific day, and God bless. Take care.
Connect the dots and keep the motion. Can achieve your goal. Let's hit the high road.
Hey, you guys, join me next week on The High Road for more stories filled with wisdom, love, and hope for our future. Have a fabulous week, and know that by staying on the high road, you will make it to your destination. Visit my website, nancyyearout.com, where you can book a private session to learn how to tap into your own abilities. And check out my YouTube channel. It's Nancy Yearout's High Road to Humanity.
You can achieve your goal.